Goodness me, for 75 pence.
Gracious. That was a very good investment made at that time, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
A family of Russian bowls and objects called kofch, and they were used, small ones, for salt, for sauce, and even for strong liquor, sort of spirit cups. Where this one varies greatly is the shape and the form with the bears. Now, usually they just have a handle, but this is most unusual. These bears on the ends, and of course very popular. It's a lovely idea. It's silver gilt, gilded on the inside because whatever goes in it, in a sense, is protected by the gilding. It will protect any food from being tainted or any liquid from being tainted by the metal. And decorated in what is called cloisonné enamel. Now, the way this is made is you have the silver body of the bowl, and then you overlay onto the silver these little filigree wires. And each one of those wires creates a cell, which is the word cloison in French, and then the enamel is basically put into these individual cells. There is a maker's mark on the bottom, and it's very small punch at the bottom, and it's actually the mark of Fedor Ruckert, and he was one of Fabergé's workmasters. I have to say, it's not Fabergé. He worked for Fabergé, and when this was made, he'd actually left and set up in business on his own. And he's well known for this type of enamel, and particularly for the use of these greens. You see these shaded and light and pale greens. You don't see that on many other examples of this cloisonné work. The eyes of the bears themselves are actually, I think, probably little tiny chips of ruby. And spectacular. I mean, date the very end of the last century, beginning of this. That's the popular period for this sort of enamel work. It does have a little damage. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yes. Is it possible to do something about that?
Yes, you can. Because of the cloisonné form, it's easy to repair. I say easy. It can be done much easier than for, say, a whole enamel object. If it was enameled all over, it's very difficult to repair without showing.
Right.
But here you can literally just attack and repair one small part. And so the results would be very successful and not enormously expensive either. But actually, collectors are well aware of this, and so it doesn't really affect the value, which I presume you'd like to know.
Well, I'd hope you would say it's not very valuable, because I want to put it on the mantelpiece again.
Well, I think it is. It's a difficult object to value for the reason that it is not the standard type. I have not seen one of these come on the market for some time, and so I'm going to give it a range. Let's say somewhere between £8,000 and £12,000 would be the value, I think. But it could make more. It's very popular at the moment. Russian works of art are
I don't want to part with it,
on a
but I
high
want
roll.
to show it.
Keep it on the mantelpiece. Wonderful. Just put it away when you go away.
Yes.
Wow. Say, what a marvellous brooch. My goodness me. Is it a family one?
Yes, it came from my great-grandmother to my mum, to my nana, then my mum, and then it's passed down.
When do you think it was made?
I haven't got a clue.
Come on, have a go.
Great-grandmother, so 18-something?
No, absolutely not 18 at all. This is actually a 20th century brooch, so maybe the story's got a little bit sort of embroidered. And the point about it is that it's a 20th century design. It's a very Art Deco design, a very Odeon style object. And if one looks at it quite carefully, it reminds you of a visit to one of those enormous cinemas with the decoration around the ceiling. What's even more special about it is that the diamonds used in its manufacture are modern cut. And what's frowned upon when you find a jewel like this is to find older cut diamonds that have been used for jewellery in the past included in such an object. And this is absolutely not the case. These long diamonds here we call baguette diamonds, and they're used to great effect to a rather geometrical design that actually in this instance owes its origins a bit to Mexican design. And here in the middle we've got rather a substantial, brilliant cut diamond.
So it is a diamond in...
Oh, it's a diamond.
I didn't think
You didn't think it was a diamond? No, goodness, no, it's quite a good thing. Curiously enough, with diamonds, if you want to make an immediate judgment as to whether a diamond is a diamond, it's the imperfections in it that tell you instantly that it is. Deep in the diamond, almost imperceptible without a very strong lens, a black deposit, which is a piece of carbon that's not crystallized. Diamonds are simply crystallized carbon. It's an element expressing itself in this particular way because of intense heat and pressure many millions of years ago. There are some problems with it that I noticed as I turned it over, that it's out of true. Had that damage been more critical, then we would have been in serious trouble, but we're not really. And it needs cleaning and a little bit of adjustment. And you know the direction to which this is all leading, don't you? That this is a really substantially good, valuable object. If there's a chance of putting a name to it, a maker, then that would add to it even more. But you have to brace yourself, strap yourself into the seat, because we've got a really, really good one here. And if you went into a West End shop to buy such an object again, I think it's possible that they would ask you £12,000 for it.
Good God. Dear me, I didn't think it was that bad. We didn't think these were diamonds.
No, well, they are diamonds. They're all diamonds. And you've got a very valuable brooch.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for bringing it.
Thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you. Now, tell me, did you make this jewellery roll?
No, I didn't.
Who did?
I don't know. It's a present from somebody.
From somebody. Let's see what's got inside. Perhaps it's got presents from somebody inside. Let's just see. Ooh. Glint of all kinds. Oh, a pretty ring there. Black enamel and diamonds. Black enamel would be a clue to most people interested in antique jewellery. This is probably a memorial jewel, and as I turn it in the light, I can see perfectly well it's engraved on the back with a dedication inscription. It says, to Jane Redmond Smith. Jane Redmond Smith died the 15th of April, 1805, aged 58 years. We actually know that Jane Redmond Smith was a married lady. In memorial jewellery, when the enamel is black, it's for married people, and when it's in white, it's for those that are unmarried. So we know that she is a married lady. The diamonds are a reminder, diamonds are forever. It's forever in the recipient's thought. Is she part of your family? Do you know about her?
I don't know anything about her at all. As she's with the other two pieces of jewellery, I assume that she's part of my family, yes, because they're all inherited pieces of jewellery. But more than that, no, I don't.
Long time ago. It might be fun to see if you could backpedal and find out who she is, because this is probably really the only relic of her now that we can know about. I'm thrilled with that. It's a lovely one. Let's see what else you've got in here. Where did all these wonderful things come from?
They've been passed down along the female line for the last four generations we know, but I think it's probably at least 5 generations.
Goodness. Under the light, this is returning a lot of light, and you can see it's a bumblebee with a baroque-shaped body.
Yes, and I wondered whether it would the pearl have thought of the design for the rest of it, or would the pearl just have been fitted in with the design? I mean, it's such an unusual piece.
Well, you're right, and what is clever about this diamond brooch in the form of a bee with a pearl body and ruby eyes is that it's a little message of love, actually, because it's a rebus, it's a sort of crossword. It's be sure of my love. It's fun, isn't it? And the diamonds are forever, the rubies are for passionate love, and the pearl is to do with Venus. So it's actually a little Valentine's card, but it needs a bit of unscrambling, but it's a very easy one to wear, and you should try and do it for everybody else's sake.
Yes.
You put that one down for a minute, and there's another absolutely beautiful diamond jewel. This one is absolutely at the turn of the century. You can see the diamond work is crisper and it returns more fire. And you can see the focus of the brooch is a very good natural pearl. I mean, one with the most unusual rainbow sheen to it. And it's trailed with laurel wreaths and hung with yet another pearl. And the date of this one, it's mounted in gold and platinum, is about 1900. So there's quite a span of ancestral jewellery here, isn't there? I mean, what a fantastic group to come out of one bag. It's certainly early 19th century, mid-19th century, turn of the century. Right. And what we've got to say a lot about, really, is what kind of value you'd attributed to them.
They were valued about 17 or 18 years ago, so I had an idea then, but that was one of the reasons that I wanted to bring that. I've really got no idea of what in the present
No memory
day.
at all of that. You said...
I'm not sure about the ring at all. I think it was just those two. But
I think that's become much more the focus of collectors today. So I think you'd have to reckon that alone is something like £1,200 to £1,500 to a collector. Really, really lovely one. And then moving on to this one, which is, I have to say, in really very, very good condition. You could expect to get £6,000 for that today.
And then, when you're...
Any contributions for the insurance?
Well, quite, I know. This one, I think you've got to reckon that another 6,000 or 7,000. So it really was rather a good visit. Very good visit from my point of view.
Well, thank you very much. You've given me such a lot of information as
the
well.
stuff that dreams are made on in the Antiques Roadshow. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
They belong to my aunt. That one in particular I have known for about 50 years because she always had it as an ornament.
Right.
And the other one, I haven't noticed so much, but then of late it was in her china cabinet. Well, they both were.
Right, yes, so rather put away and not used.
And she gave me them at Christmas.
Oh. Have you used them since then?
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, it'd be rather fun to use. This little fellow, Pepper Pot.
It is Pepper.
That one is for Pepper.
Yeah.
You can see the piercing just at the top, and of course the lid detaches. He's rather fun. And marked underneath there. And the maker in this case is the maker you really want for owls. Charles Thomas and George Fox.
Yes.
Very, very good makers. I think one of the best makers of the middle years of the 19th century. Made so many very, really original objects. And the date we're looking at for this little fellow is 1856. Right? The larger one, now he was marked, or made and then marked in 1852, so a little bit earlier. The maker in this case is one that you don't find quite so often, and that's a chap called George Richards. And with the size that we've got there, I think he's really been intended for sugar.
Yes. Well, that's what's been in that one.
Right, right. Fox was the better of the two makers. And actually, when you start to look into the detail, if you look, for example, at the way the feet are produced, the much better feet that you've actually got on the Fox one than on the other. They're sort of, the feet are there, yes. But they're rather sort of puddingy feet. So, very collectible. I would think the little fellow here by Fox, he at auction, you'd be thinking of it somewhere between £700 and £800. And the larger one, I would think at say 1,000 to 1,200.
What I want to know is how did you resist playing with these wonderful toys and corgis and dinkies?
It was played with every day, actually.
Were they?
It was, yes.
You can't tell me that you played every day as a nipper.
As a small boy.
With your Land Rover and trailer.
I did.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
Well, this is a great one because it's in fantastic condition. The best of these with red Land Rovers and red and black liveried trailers are worth £200 to £300. This one's worth probably 70 to 90 in beige. I love the colour schemes on some of these corgis. I mean, this is the Austin Mini Countryman in sea green here with its a surfer standing in front. That's a great one, isn't it? That's another 60 to 90 pound fellow. This one is in just dazzling condition. The I think, who is it? It's Hall and Co.'s coal lorry with the fake sacks of coal and a set of trucks on the back. That's in really wonderful order. You couldn't have played with that.
I did, yes. Played with everything.
You were a very gentle boy.
Yes, yeah.
Well, that's fantastic, because with that dazzling blue interior, it's worth 110 to 120 pounds in jolly good state. Yeah. I'll just plonk it back inside like that. And I think probably the oldest dinky and the best, or rather most valuable piece here is the Foden tanker with its Regent livery. Again, slightly scratched. This is 1957 to 1959, quite a short production run. Always nice, these Foden wagons. It's worth probably about £300. There's between 300 and 400. Have you got any more at home?
I haven't, no.
No. Well, you must have got 50 here, and they're largely corgis, but largely in very good condition with their boxes. If they had an average value, say, of £50 each, you've got £2,500 worth of corgis. Plus, we've got the extra, rather more special dinkies that I've talked to you about. So it's a very nice group.
Oh, good.
You should. You're a lesson to all the nippers.
Yes. Yeah. Look after your toys.
Look after your toys.
Father was a builder, and we built a big new house. And when they moved in, they wanted most furniture and things for it. And in the area where we was, south of Manchester, most of the cotton people used to live there. When the cotton depression was on, they were selling their homes up. So they used to go to the sales. And pictures at that time were going very reasonable. Nobody was interested. So my parents, they thought, well, this is something that will come back. And they used to buy a lot of pictures. Finally, we had no room to put this, no walls to hang it on, so it went up in the room.
So so how long was it hanging on the wall, as far as you can remember?
I've had it hanging on the wall since 36.
You obviously love the painting.
I do. That's wonderful. I'm fascinated with all the expressions on the children's faces.
It's a picture that couldn't be painted today, could it?
I don't think so. No, the painters today can't get to the expressions and the detail like this.
Well, the signature is quite clear. It's signed G.W. Wells, and he is recorded, but barely. He exhibited one picture at the British Institute in 1849, and this is dated 1850, or it seems to be about that. So I don't know why he exhibited so little, because he's quite a fine artist.
Yeah.
With a sense of humour.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, they're about to shove a snowball down the toff's neck, isn't he?
You see the devilment in his face.
Yes. And there is no price for that pleasure that you get from it, is there?
No price at all.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's really what...
Yeah.
Sometimes when people don't understand about paintings, they don't understand that for all the money they could spend, for the pleasure you've had with this picture, it's priceless.
Yeah.
I think because of the charm of the picture, I'm going to suggest a value of between £15,000 and £20,000.
15 or 20?
Well, because it's a very charming picture, and it's very hard to get this quality of picture today.
It's amazing, huh?
So how long have you had it? About 25 years.
Oh, right, so that you've had an interest in the technique in Tunbridge ware for quite some time.
Yes.
And I'm sure you know how the whole technique is put together. I mean, I think it's a fascinating technique, something that is really quite mass-produced, but comes up with these extraordinarily pretty, delicate decorative motifs, which are like a mosaic, really, with putting bundles of little bits of wood together and then slicing across the glued bundles to create the picture. And to have a pedestal and plinth, which is also decorated throughout with that technique, I think is really very special indeed. The style of the pedestal will often give you an idea of the date, and I think from this one would suggest around 1835-40, something like that. Now, this looks like a workbox. It could be a teapoy. Let's have a look inside and see what we've got. Oh, look, isn't that wonderful? And in such beautiful condition. Because it's got the original lining paper, which you can just see around the edge here. This immaculate crinkled velvet in the lining, a surround of Tunbridge ware again, and then all these fittings in here. Everything absolutely immaculate. What do we have in here? Oh, look, this is a card for Edmund Nye, inlaid and mosaic wood manufacturer, which is essentially the Tunbridge ware technique, to Her Majesty and the royal family. Now that's rather nice. So this perhaps suggests that the box could have been made by Edmund Nye, a rather smart maker. Now you have obviously looked at that. Have you done any research at all?
We do know that it was probably, there's some odd bits of lettering, letterheads here that suggest that it was made for one of the ladies, perhaps ladies in waiting or something like that.
How interesting. Now, you bought it 25 years ago. What did you pay for it?
I think it might even have been a bit longer than that. But I think they paid something around £150.
£150. Well, workboxes are, of course, collected. The interest in Tunbridge ware doesn't diminish over the years. It is so highly decorative. I think now you might be looking at something like 6,000 to 8,000.
Gracious. That was a very good investment made at that time, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
Well, it's known as repoussé work, which is taken from the French repoussé, which in English basically translates as equivalent of embossed. And the technique used is to make the skin of the case like a dish, a bowl, and then afterwards they actually punched it up from the back. And if we look inside, I think we'll probably find underneath the watch paper, this by the way is a Victorian watch paper that's been put in by somebody who repaired it. But if we look inside, we'll see that in fact, exactly that, how they've stamped through from the back. It's a delicate process. Now, the interesting thing about it is that because you have to continue to stamp the case up, you're continually thinning the gold, you're pressing the gold out, and as you stretch it, of course, it'll get thinner, which means that over the years, if the watch is worn, and unfortunately, I know that sounds the wrong word, but unfortunately this watch has been worn, and we've lost quite a lot of the detail, but if you look very carefully, you can actually see that there are holes in it. And so that's where it's worn through. Now the decoration is Rococo, but it's interesting in one way, because usually with watch cases, the scene, which in this case could be Dido and Aeneas, it's one of the famous sort of warrior's return or warrior's departure. I haven't had time to work it out. Now usually that scene will occupy the whole centre of the back of the watch, and the Rococo scrollwork will work all the way round as a frame. In this case, it's rather closer to the sort of French technique, early technique, where actually the Rococo scrolls, as you can see, they run all round and through the scene. Almost as if the actual subject is an afterthought. Which makes me think that it's early, because the first sort of repoussé watch cases you get in England come in the early 1740s, and I think this is probably around about 1745. One other thing which I think you probably notice is, of course, it's pierced, and the reason it's pierced is because the watch is actually a repeater. So we can see if we can get it to... It's not going to do the right one. Quarter repeater, the hours and the quarters. It's not actually following the hands. But again, the dial has been changed. And if you actually can look at the dial with these Arabic numbers, they don't really sort of fit. They're a bit harsh. They sort of bash you in the nose, as you might say. And that's because originally the dial would have been gold. In the 1740s, they were still using gold dials, even though the enamel dial was already becoming a replacement. But what happened, those gold dials were difficult to read, so it was very popular and very common to upgrade the watch in the 1780s, and that's the date of this, 1780, 1790, with a specially made enamel dial with Arabic numerals in this case and new gold hands. Now, of course, the question is who's it made by. I'm sure it's going to be signed, and see if he bears out the theory that it's probably an early watch. It's actually signed here, John Archambault. J-N-O, is it John? Yes, John Archambault, London. So he was working from the sort of 1720s to the 1750s, and probably comes from a Huguenot family, because most of the best silversmiths in England at the time were Huguenots. One particularly nice feature is that here you have a little disc for the regulator. And when you put the cap back on, this little cap here, which is for dust protection, you can actually see that there's a snail for the direction of slow, and a little hair for the direction of fast. So you turn the little square with a key to adjust the watch, and obviously turning it left makes it go slower, and turning it right makes it go faster, which is a nice little detail. So can I ask how you got it then, if you want?
Well, I inherited it after my father some 25 years ago, and I don't know how it came into his possession. I suspect that he himself bought it.
The condition is against it. It's common for them to be worn. Occasionally you find them absolutely mint, and then they are very valuable. As it stands, it's still an important little watch. I suppose probably be looking at 2,000, between 2 and 3.
Surprising.
I'm glad it's not that bad a news though.
So instinct always says turn a chair up when you first look at it. It's just a sort of habit really to look underneath. And you can see here quite clearly where the cross bases here have been replaced. I mean, that wood there, the contrast of that wood is completely different to the side rails and looks like a new piece of timber. There's no attempt at anything but a good honest replacement there, which is very, very typical. I suspect this has been done relatively recently.
3 years ago.
About 3 years ago, right. So it's a nice honest replacement. Let's just put him on his feet. That is such a good-looking chair. It really is a good-looking chair. But look at this. This is great, though. Oh, that's wonderful. That,
yes.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary to see that. So lovely piercing, almost like a pear drop, with that acanthus leading up to what is the hangover, the vestiges of what was known as a shepherd's crook arm terminal. Lovely sort of rococo scroll and this nice shape here. That's wonderful. I mean, that's really unusual to see that. In fact, now my eye catches other things as we go down this typical, known wrongly, I think, as Chinese Chippendale, perhaps. This type of blind fretwork, as it's called, on that leg. That's wonderful, front leg there. That's great. It's a very good-looking chair, but tell me what its history is.
Well, my husband, when he was a child, remember his grandfather sitting in this chair, and apparently it belonged to his own grandfather before him. And then eventually we found it 3 years ago, after my father-in-law died, in a room, all in bits practically, you know, and...
Really?
It was only saved because my grandfather was, I suppose, a peasant farmer in a sense, had no interest in material things, and when he was dying, he asked my mother to look after his chair. And so I had a soft spot for it, so I kept the bits.
Right. Thank heavens you've saved it, because 20, 30, 40 years ago, it might have been thrown away, the chair. Nobody would have bothered to keep it. But it's such a good-looking chair. I mean, this sort of thing it's often called, there's one famous name, obviously, the sort of person who made this, Mr. Chippendale, Thomas Chippendale. But in fact, this style is really much, or quite a little bit earlier. It predates Chippendale. There's somebody called de la Cour who did a book of engravings, of designs, which you could buy, very much as Chippendale did in the 50s, but in the 1740s, designs of a similar nature. And then other makers in England would buy those designs, somebody called Copeland, later on Inson Mayhew, Robert Manwaring. They're all names which one has to use alongside Chippendale. It's not all exclusively Chippendale's own work. It does pose a problem because it's been sympathetic restore, but not professional restore. No, and that makes it difficult for me to value. I'm sure you realise that chairs like this in original condition are worth a lot of money. You know, £10,000 each, £15,000 each, in fact more for pairs of chairs like this. I think you've got to insure it for £6,500, £7,500, something like that. Even in its present state. Because it's all there.
Yes.
It's all there. It's a genuine chair, and you know, the more I looked at it, the more I realised that those are the original pieces, which makes all the difference to being replacement pieces. Thank heavens you saved it. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The first thing to say about this is that there is an almost identical piece in the Victoria and Albert Museum. In fact, I think yours is slightly better because the one in the V&A doesn't have the base part to it. No. But it has these panels of marquetry, identical to this, and it has a nice warm feel to it, as if it's a family piece.
Yes.
So is it?
Yes, it is. My father bought it after the war. Then when he died, he left it to my mother in her lifetime.
Right.
And then when she died just before Christmas, I chose it out of her possessions.
Well, it is basically William and Mary period, just before Queen Anne. Could stretch into about 1700, 1702, that sort of date. This lovely simplistic marquetry, which of course we actually took directly from the Dutch influence.
Yes.
And we want to establish, first of all, because it does affect to a certain extent the value, whether or not it is a Dutch-made one. And it could be made by a Dutchman in England, or it could be by a Dutchman in Holland, and that does affect the value to an extent. And what we do is to see how it is constructed. The oak here is the traditional lining for good quality furniture in that period. On an English one, they veneered onto pine. On the continent, they veneered onto oak.
Yes.
You don't see the front, and so here they used pine. So there is now no doubt that it's made in England. Also, rare for this period, it has the original plate, that lovely sort of fan-tailed lock. Wonderful thing. And here, I think the original handles. Now that in itself is terribly unusual. The one thing that is against it, from a collector's point of view, is that the feet are not right. It should stand about that high, not much higher, because then you wouldn't see the wonderful top. I want to just look at the condition of it. You can see that the damage is caused by the structure and shrinkage. And if I do that, you can see that piece is loose. That is the moulding which was applied, onto which they put veneer cross-banded. Wonderful, absolutely right for 1690, 1700. But as it shrunk, it's broken away. These pieces have lifted up, and now, of course, you catch the duster every time you dust it. Now, this has to be done extremely carefully, because each of those little pieces has to be cleaned from underneath and laid down. What you cannot do is have somebody simply clamp it up and rub the surface down so that it's smooth. One of the many wonderful things about this is the colour.
Yes.
And this superb
Yes,
surface.
it's beautiful.
This is the original varnish, for want of a better word, that was put on by using shell lac, and rubbed down with reeds and dust, and coat after coat was put on until this surface was achieved. And that has lasted all these years. And it is virtually impossible to recreate that. Otherwise, an exemplary piece. I think for a good insurance valuation, it should be 12,500.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh, I just had no idea it was anything
Well,
like
it's
that.
an important piece of furniture.
Yes. Well, it's wonderful to know. Thank
All right.
you so much.
Well,
Yes,
thank you for
that's
letting me see
lovely.
it. Okay.
No, that's lovely. Thank you.
The first thing to ask you is, does it have a name?
Yes, it does. Clarence, the cross-eyed lion.
Clarence the cross-eyed lion.
Yes.
It doesn't look terribly cross-eyed
No,
to
I
me.
don't think he is really, but it just came to me, that did, you know?
So it's a boy,
I don't know. I want you to tell me.
and it's a lion.
I don't know.
Stripes, lots of lovely stripes all over him. Now, I've never seen a lion with stripes, so I think we're going to call him a tiger. I hope you don't mind me changing his name slightly.
No, I don't at all.
But as for the sex, well, we'll come to that later, shall we? What we're looking at is a very, very nice Oriental bronze. It's from Japan.
Yes.
How did it come to you?
I inherited it actually from an aunt of mine
Yes.
who purchased it during the war.
Right.
She heard that this lady had got this lion and she went to see it. This lady said to my aunt, well, if you have him, you can have this and the sewing table, and I will throw you 2 oil paintings in for 30 bob, which was £1.50 in today's money.
£1.50.
Yes,
That's quite a nice little bundle, isn't it, really? And then these have passed to you.
These are passed to me. I've inherited them, yes.
Well, the majority of Japanese lions and tigers stand reaching forward and their tails pointing straight back. They form a very powerful diagonal movement, which on a sideboard is actually a rather rhetorical sort of gesture.
Yes.
The line goes from one end to the other and the eye doesn't rest. But with this object, we've got something quite different. We've got a movement that curls in on itself, this wonderful prowling beast.
Yes, he's ready to pounce.
And we've got these wonderful shoulder blades rising up through its hide. It's a massive piece of modelling, and it's very, very successful. Not only because of the animal itself, but also because of the superb stand it's actually standing on.
I want to pick him up because he really does beg to be picked up. I hope he's not going to bite me. Well, you asked whether you were giving him the right gender. You are. I think we can see that from the tail end.
Yes.
What we also have here, the foundry seal mark. Now, it is done in seal characters, so I can't actually tell you what it says. But there are a number of really good foundries in Japan around the 1900-1910 period, and this is when this particular piece was made. I hope it's not too great a disappointment that Clarence has turned from a lion into a tiger.
No, not really. No, I'll still think of him.
You'll still
yes.
enjoy him?
Oh, I will, truly, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Are you interested in the value? I mean, does
Well,
it
yes,
have
I'm very interested, but I've no idea at all, you know, not a clue.
Well, I would put the value somewhere in the region of between £3,000 and £5,000.
Goodness me, for 75 pence. It's not a bad...
Quite a good bundle.
Isn't it? Yes, goodness me.